Nick, what's going on in design and AI this week?
Um, a lot. What I'll say is that, you know, lately it seems like every week there is an announcement that shifts what people think is possible. Um, you know, Last week was the Claude Code leak, which was
Oh my God,
super
I can't
interesting.
believe we're already past that. I
Yeah.
honestly, I thought it was an April Fool's joke, and then people played off of it
I
and
mean,
made April Fools on top of it.
it's interesting because that announcement was April 1st, and um, and then it was followed up the next week with the Claude Mythos announcement. So I don't know, some interesting marketing
But
going
like
on.
Mythos or Mythos, however you pronounce it, was part of the leak. So I wonder if it accelerated the announcement because people were like, "Yeah, we know it's
That's
coming."
interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit too like strategic to, or like too like conniving to like leak your source code like that. Um, so I definitely don't think it was intentional, but I do think that afterwards they kind of rolled with it, you know.
Yeah,
But the news announcement this week about Mythos, however you want to pronounce it, um, at least for in my mind, solidifies the argument that AI can code and that it it is or will be better than any human coder or the average human coder, um, which is a significant um, development if you really think about it.
hmm
Significant from like a labor perspective, significant from a productivity perspective. I mean, the amount of tools that are going to come out of this development, I think, is just going to be mind boggling.
I think like especially Anthropic has been warning about AGI and the risks of it. Not like sort of from the job loss side, more from just like the bioweapon and all of the like the risk on that side. And so I saw it announced, I read the article, and then I saw the internal chatter, and we're pretty close with the Anthropic team, and we're like, hey, can we get a preview? And they're like, we're not even releasing it to. Okay, so they're only releasing it to security teams within core infrastructure, like internet and application infrastructure. And within that group, it's like a very, very limited preview. My guess is like 100 people are able to like use this right now. Like they've locked it down so hard because I think rightly so, like they're terrified of how bad actors are going to use the thing. So they're only giving it to like explicitly known good actors. And this is what I've always been really scared of building vibe coded tools is like the hallucinations on security side, but like the external folks just getting very good. And sure, you can like write your own pen test with AI and have AI execute on the outside test into your application, but that's not my full time job. Like I'm trying to build like interfaces that delight users. I'm not trying to destroy my own application, but I think there's bodies of people who are like there to destroy, and that's really scary.
Yeah, yeah. You have to think that um, the traditional sort of bad actors are already like at the heels of this. Like they're if they're not reaching parity right now, they're at least a month away.
hmm
And I'm basing this off of like no sort of like hard truths or facts. I'm just, if you look at the timeline of the way things have been developing, right, it would be naive to think that Anthropic is so far ahead of everyone else that they've, figured out something that everyone else can't figure out and won't be able to figure out for another year, right? So
hmm
it's sort of like it's not just where we are now and we're pausing and this is where we will be, right? It's the fast takeoff, narrative where it's like we're on a gradually accelerating slope, and it's just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
But
It felt
I
like there was
was
acceleration
yeah.
last year around this time. And there's been moments where I've been able to catch up, some months more than others. Then what are we on now? What's the slope? It's acceleration again? Is it just like this like 2 year acceleration arc? The thing can't accelerate forever. Actually, sorry. Traditionally things don't accelerate forever.
Well, I think you have to think about like what are the bottlenecks, right? So already Claude and Anthropic have said that their bottleneck for this model is not the intelligence of the model, but the computation they have access to, right? And this is what all these organizations have been saying, right? Is that like the major bottleneck right now is getting chips and data centers online and powered up, right? Um, and and so already you're starting to see that that software piece is sort of solved. Like everything that's in the information space that's like
Mm-hmm.
connected to the internet, adapted by code, running on code, that people are like, forget it. It's just going to keep accelerating. But the other side is the physical hardware side, which is like, okay, now, you know, we need to build more data centers. We need to build infrastructure that can support all of these amazing applications and tools that are going to come out of this. Um, and that's a lot harder to do, right? Like the world of bits and the world of atoms are completely different and have completely diverged. But I do think that this is going to unlock a ton of really incredible opportunities and businesses in the world of atoms, because now you don't have to spend all this time sort of configuring bits or writing software to like move bits.
Yeah. It yeah, it's like the thermo and quantum computing stuff that it's still just like research preview. Like down the road in Caltech, they're like, we're able to get like 99% accuracy. And then you look at the subheading and it was like for 10 seconds. Or like it's for like, seconds that they're able to like create these spaces that are like more densely intelligent, and then it kind of like absolves, right? Because like the lasers
Yeah.
or whatever, like the atom escapes and it's over. And
Yeah.
so I
And
don't think
you
we
know,
have
like,
like we have Moore's law still on the chip size, but I don't think we have like the quantum leap that AI has.
well, we'll say like, you know, what people have been saying is that like Moore's law is like the technical term for Moore's law is dead because we can't keep shrinking transistors, right? But now we have parallelism and we have GPUs and we have the ability to write these insanely intelligent programs and models to GPUs and run them on like progressively beefier GPUs, but also progressively faster and more efficient GPUs. But I'm talking about like construction. I'm talking about like,
Sure.
you know, if this is really the singularity and that people are saying that it is, because things are just going to keep improving and accelerating as quickly as possible, you know, the biggest hurdles to that not happening are physical hurdles, right? Like Amazon still needs to put boxes on trucks. Um, Waymo, even if it's, you know, fully autonomous, still needs to deliver people from one, you know, from their starting point to their destination.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes time, right? So sort of like efficiently managing all of that. I mean, we saw Travis Kalanick with his announcement, which is just ironic and hilarious.
Well, I
Do you know
missed it.
about
What
this?
is
Did
it?
you see
No.
this? So he's the guy who was fired from. He was the founder of Uber and was fired. You know about this? Since then, he's been running a cloud kitchen company, so like, or a ghost kitchen company. And now he just recently made an announcement basically saying that this ghost kitchen company is secretly like an AI logistics company, from everything from like mining to delivering all sorts of items. And it's like,
Okay.
okay, sure, dude.
Yeah, I'll have to read that article. On a slightly different topic, you and I have been chatting back and forth on this, but I don't think we've talked live about the Welcome to Gastown article. Yeah, and I know that
Yeah.
you've seen a few people using beads, which is, like the predecessor of it. But man, I haven't laughed so hard at something that's like technically career related. Oh man, in a really long time.
Yeah. I know this is kind of the thing, right? It's like career stuff is now blending so much with like everyday life, right?
Hmm.
Because even the whole term of like vibe coding, right?
Yeah,
It's like the work has become so easy because of the AI assistance that it just feels very fluid. And then there's like a dopamine hit that you get when you do it. So the sort of like psychosis state that author was in when he was writing that,
yeah,
like really resonated with a lot of people, and that's why I think it was so
that's so
funny.
funny. Yeah, I mean,
And
you
then,
see people being like, I canceled my Netflix for a Cloud Masks subscription, and it's more entertaining.
well, I was having a conversation with someone the other night about how like we are moving into a world in a future where, you know, if you want to build a video game with your child and then play that video game, you can do that now. And that's a much more engaging and fun experience, educational experience than watching Netflix or playing a game that already exists, right? Like
Hmm.
we got self adapting software and video games before we got GTA 6, right? That's like the the other meme. Um,
Yeah,
no,
but that's like
it's crazy.
slippery slope because I was at the park with my son this morning and we're searching for bugs, and you're like, yes, it might be better than sitting and like putting them in front of an iPad, but like the comparison is I should probably be building stuff with my son and like, out in nature and, participating in real life and stuff. And so, yeah. But okay, psychosis, interesting. You think that Steve was in a state of psychosis, right?
Yeah, and this is like the joke now, right? About, do you see the post on X about Gary Tan being in a constant
Which
state of Claude psychosis? You know about this?
no,
So Gary
no.
Tan is
I know who
this
Gary
like,
Tan is.
yeah, yeah. So people have been shaming him on X because he's like constantly posting every day about how he's like writing 27,000 lines of code a day, or
Mhm.
he's pushing 27,000 lines of code a day. And then, everyone's like, why do you need 27,000 lines of code for a silly blog? And they like downloaded his, or they like went to his blog and tried to see how much
Yeah,
code was being like served, and why it was so slow. And it's like, why is this such a crazy big site? So they were accusing him of like not being efficient with his code because he doesn't actually
that's so
understand
funny.
what he's building.
Yeah.
But I think that this is like the classic example of Luddites, right? Basically
Hmm.
saying, I feel threatened that my job is going to be replaced, and so I have to put this thing down, and I need to like socially tell everyone, no, using this is a bad idea, or this is not a good thing for software.
It's funny with the Gary Tan thing. So I didn't actually know about him until getting into this space, but I started listening to the Light Cone podcast from YC because they're really the only ones who are talking about like niche vertical AI and kind of like, B2B SaaS leading. And like no one was talking about it at the time. And so that was like my core information source was like them talking about it, reflecting on where we were, sharing stories from their cohort. And switch was I cannot listen to it anymore. And it might have been like the topic shifted a bit or like I shifted a bit because I was just using it as a crutch to like get into the space. But it's just, yeah, it's like all hype and bubble, and there's like no really like outside people. And they bring outside people, but it's like Anthropic and Windsurf and, people from the portfolio companies. Like, man, I cannot get back into it. And it was so good for me in the very beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I've noticed that happening with myself too. There's like fatigue sets in, right? You sort of
Mm-hmm.
like, and actually this happened with me with Midjourney, where like you, like I remember when Midjourney first came out, and I was like addicted to Midjourney.
Yep,
I was
me
just like
too.
generating images constantly, and
That's
it
what got me
felt
into
so
AI.
powerful.
I don't know about you.
Yeah, I would say the same. I mean, I had known, but like being like a consistent user of AI, I think Midjourney was like the big sort of aha movement. And then I just remember like at a certain point, I could see these patterns in the images that I could never see before, where I was like, oh, like this color combination, it's sort of like patterns started to emerge that I had never noticed, but only because I could see the volume, the same kind of volume, right? And it's funny now that I'm saying that, it sort of feels like my neural net was like updated, you know, because it's
They call
like,
it psychosis.
yeah, but it was like something clicked where I was like, oh, I've seen so many of these images that they all of a sudden they sort of look the same to me,
Dude, another thing
you know?
happened a few weeks back because, like working at Grammarly now, Superhuman, I'm like reading a lot of AI generated content and trying to figure out ways to like make it better. Um, and that paired with my recent understanding of dead internet theory, I look at LinkedIn and I can't unsee that almost half, if not more, of the posts are AI generated. And it's like people are, it's not M dash, sorry, it is M dash, but it's so much more than that. And like, oh my God, are people trying to write like the AI, or are they just copy and pasting directly from Claude?
They're copy and pasting directly from Claude, and they're not,
What are you
they
doing?
haven't like, I've noticed too, people are doing this as well with like scripts. Like they will have AI generate a script, and then they'll read the generated script, and it'll be a real person reading it. Like, so, like there's this really great, it happened once with this really great commentator, geopolitics guy. He used to be like the like head of the bank in Greece. He's like a very
Yeah.
like active, outspoken political commentator on YouTube. And then he came out with a video that was like very clearly scripted by AI, because it had all of these like, it's not this, it's this,
Yeah.
And
That,
I was like,
that.
dude, what are you doing? Like, you're a smart guy. Like, are you kidding me? Um, so actually, I think what we're doing here is pretty refreshing, that we're doing it off the cuff, not scripted. Well, one, I think like YouTube is, like, people gravitate towards YouTube for that level of authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I also think like thinking out loud is an important thing to be able to do still.
Yeah.
Um,
But you can think out loud with
yeah.
your AI and it'll turn into psychosis.
I'm
The
telling you, man, like I
convergence.
really think, go ahead.
Finish your thought, and then
Okay,
I'll go
fine.
ahead.
I really think that social AI spaces like that has not yet been explored. But like, you and I, we should be able to enter a chat with my Claude, your Claude, and we can have a conversation all together. But that interface doesn't really exist right now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a little weird. Um, so I've just been thinking about the conversions. So one is Pablo Stanley recently joined Vercel, which is like, whoa, they got everyone now. Um, and he's on the V0 team, and so I've been following him more closely because I've been following him for years because he speaks like like Webflow and Figma and Creative Humans and creates design courses on Domestika and stuff. And so his recent post was called like taste.md. And he's like, I'm so pissed off at this word taste, which is funny because the CEO of Vercel is like all about like promoting the idea of taste. You have like one of their staff principal designers being like, this is pissing me off. Um, and he was basically like, every AI is going to converge on average. Like, sure, it's called taste, but like the real design thing is about like intention and understanding like what good and not good feels like. But he's like, it's actually just continuing to work on the thing until it's to a point of quality that you're like happy with. And I've been thinking about this a lot. Like we can talk about the welcome to the interface concept, but firstly, every B2B SaaS company is creating a Google search box on their landing page, and it's like, is this like a convergence of the stepping stone of like where we're going, and it's like a good pattern, or is this like PM psychosis essentially of being like, okay, everyone's doing it, and the AI is telling me to vibe code it like this is the new pattern, and everyone's converging on this like average, which is terrifying, right? Because you're just going to get like it's basically design slop. But I don't know if people can read it as well as like LLM writing slop. Um, yeah, there's like six ideas in this. You can pull whichever one you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think for UX and UI design, there's two things going on. One is like, because I experienced this when prototyping with, this sort of stupid recipe studio app that I built. But what you realize is like, you could give a user like smart buttons, right? Or
Hmm.
smart UI that adapts to the context, and then the user can sort of like click around really quickly, right? Or you could just give them the chat window or the search window. And what ends up happening is like, if the user goes into the search or the chat window and then inputs a ton of information, that information that they're putting in is actually much richer than the one where like they just clicked on, a series of options. So in a sense, it creates a richer experience for the user, but then it also creates a richer experience for the app and the app developers because they are getting more information from the user with each
Like
query.
intent. Yes.
It's sort of how like, Google search, or like old Google search, used to be, okay, I'm going to search for common keywords that are related to
Hmm.
my topic. And now that the search bar understands intent, it's like you end up giving it so much context. You're like, oh, I'm asking this question because my brother reached out to me, or I'm asking this question because I met this person, and it's like it has nothing to do with the question. But all of a sudden, like, Google or Gemini knows about your relation to this person, and it's responding in that way too, right? And then it's like
Yeah.
saving that in the memory. I mean, it's it's interesting and also a bit scary, right? Because it's like the mass surveillance applications are right there, right?
Yeah, they are.
Sort of like able to parse and understand a lot more about you than it used to. Um, so that's a design challenge for sure.
Like, okay, so I think about physical design versus digital design for this. Like, I go simple, like in this RFP example, like I go to upload an RFP. Wouldn't you want their like, so in good design, you try to minimize the time to value or the like the aha moment. And so wouldn't it be faster to have UI that's built for a very specific workflow, like upload the RFP, it gets parsed, let's answer it, rather than a chat conversation back and forth. And if you build a ton of tools in the back end, like maybe that reduces the time to value, but in like a traditional kind of Claude co-work experience, like there's a ton of back and forth, and there's processing, and there's the LMs thinking, and then calling the right tools, and et cetera. I think it takes longer to get the output you want, and we're just like we're so mesmerized that like a computer can be intelligent like this that it's like it's actually slowing us down for some business workflows.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, I encountered something similar with Recipe Studio, where like the whole point of like creating a recipe app using AI was that AI was doing a really good job of creating recipes for me. But because those recipes were now like in this chat log with a whole bunch of other requests, I couldn't find those recipes
Mm-hmm.
in my app, right? And searching for them was like not ideal either, because I didn't even know like what I was searching for. I really kind of wanted to browse, right? I wanted to know what my options were, and I didn't want to just look at a blank screen or a blank text box. So I'm 100% with you. I think if you know what you want to do already, the tool that is really, really good at doing that job really quickly will beat sort of like the chat experience, right?
Right. Because it's
It's
essentially
just
a
that,
Swiss Army knife.
yeah,
And you ask it, like the more general it is, the more of being like the chat bot being like, I'm a Swiss Army knife. I have this and this and this and this. But most times it hallucinates on Atlas too, and it doesn't actually know what it has tools for.
yeah, yeah, and you know, and that will improve, I'm sure. Um, I was actually thinking about this kind of as a thought experiment. There's a really great tool called FFmpeg. Are you familiar with FFmpeg?
So, dude, that's what got me into this entire space. I downloaded Cursor and I'm like, and blank. I had the like the blank screen freeze because I didn't have a repo locally on my computer. I'm like, where do I find a repo? And I come back to it the day later. And I was like, oh, I'm trying to like do some image video transformation. Like, where do I go? I was like, maybe there's an open source tool. And I'm like, I have no clue how to run this thing. I'm like, wait, but I have this thing called Cursor. Let's just see if it works. And dude, it worked within 30 minutes. I remember like let in a typical vibe coder pose. I was laying on a couch with my computer, on my chest, just like casually doing something, and it worked. I'm like, oh my god! I just opened up Pandora's box, which for a lot of engineers was like GitHub is just like known, right? Like you always use open source software or packages to start something out with. But I never like entered
Yeah,
into that world before Cursor. So go ahead.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the tool.
No, but that's like that is the thing, right? FFmpeg is a tool that is like a Swiss Army knife for converting between images and videos, and can convert any file to any other file. It works super fast. You can choose any setting, but it's a command line interface, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
it's really only easy to use for developers who are sort of like used to the text box, or like used to like you know writing like very very specific commands that are
Yeah.
character constrained, right? And what's really interesting is now with Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, you can you can get Claude, or you can get Gemini to use FFmpeg in the terminal, and you can
Right.
just say, hey, you know, like convert this video to this GIF, like convert this MP4 to a GIF that's less than 50 megabytes, right? And it will sort of like do it for you. But what I found, which is really interesting, is that the first time you do it, the second time you do it, like it gets it wrong, right? Like you'll get something that is not quite what you were looking for. And so you have to sort of like tell it again, oh, change this about it, right? Like don't downsample the resolution of the GIF, like drop frames, right? Like make it slower so to make it a smaller file size, right? And that could have been solved with just like a much better UI that was sort of like giving you a preview of what kind of video you were going to get or what kind of file you were going to get at the end of the process, right? And so it's an interesting question now because there are some things where it's a lazy UI to just give yourself the chat box and then have the AI figure out what you want to do. But it's and maybe it's a richer experience as well. But I really kind of see the two experiences happening side by side because I think there are advantages to both, but I don't see the UI going away completely. You're already starting to see like the native chat experiences for Claude and for Gemini and for ChatGPT. When they create things, they now create cards or they create
That's right.
images, they create user interfaces, artifacts, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I think that output piece, like the human brain processes so much information with its eyes that to sort of just like have it be text, is like not the best. Or have
Yeah.
it be even voice, right? It's like it's not the best output at all.
Kelsey was just doing research for a trip that's coming up, and she was, in a back and forth, and it generated a map with all the points of where we're looking. It's like, oh, whoa, it's happening instead of just the normal bullet list. It's like using some sort of package, Mapbox or whatever, putting it in space and context. I'm like, okay, this is definitely where it's going. And you and I have both prototyped where the agent like will generate UI like as you're going because you often like need UI mixed with language to be able to like execute on an action and confirm, for example. The CLI thing is really interesting. I like being able to natural language CLI a lot. And like talking to Claude about doing things that has the right tools, it goes off and does it. Like its level of success is super high. And you and I both have success with like Supabase or Postgres using CLI. It's like, okay, it's like running the migrations correctly. It's pulling down the
Yeah.
updated TypeScript. That's great.
Yeah. For some things like using Claude in the CLI is better and faster than searching for the right button or the right menu, the right context
Right.
menu, right? Like I think for anything that has like a cascading set of menu choices, like that's going to go away, right? Because that's just a limitation on, oh, you have a hierarchy of choices, right? And you're going down this decision tree of choices. What's a better way to do that? Just do it with natural language, right? And then all of a sudden you have information about where you're going. Um, and speaking of where we're going, I have to hop right now.
I was going to say we're at the top of the hour, so time
Yeah,
time
yeah,
to eat.
exactly.